Sabres play the Lightning on Saturday. Tampa having a great year. Florida having a great year. Ottawa, Montreal, all these teams above the Sabres in the Atlantic Division. How likely are they to stay there going forward? We'll look at the division, the future of it, and what's happened this year around the Sabres coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast.
You're Locked On Sabres, your daily podcast on the Buffalo Sabres. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into this Friday edition of the Locked On Sabres podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. That does include our YouTube channel where you can watch the show. Be sure to like and subscribe us there if you're watching along. And if you would like to become a member of our Locked On Sabres text club, you could do that if you're not already a texter by going over to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSabres for all your news updates, all your goal updates throughout games, little commentary back and forth, of course, for you as well. Sneaky Joe DiBiase here on a Friday. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Sabres off today, game day tomorrow, off for the game. They are in the Harbor Center right now, practicing actually as we speak. And the big news on the Sabres today is about a guy we just spent a lot of yesterday's episode on. Noah Ostlund has been recalled by the Buffalo Sabres. He is practicing with the team right now. In fact, I'm waiting for, hopefully by the time we get rolling, I know you're listening to this after the fact, but by the time I get to the second segment, that we have line combinations for Ostlund. Lance Lysowski tweeted that he was getting explained a drill by Alex Tuch and Yuri Kulik, so maybe that's an implication that could be his line. It doesn't have to be. He was getting some power play minutes as well, so it is very likely, I think, that you're going to see him on the ice tomorrow against the Lightning, but we'll get to more about Ostlund being up with the team and what that could mean for the final stretch of games, maybe eliminating some players that are dealing with injuries right now. But we'll get to all that coming up on today's show. We are going to get right into, though, our main topic of today's show, which is about tomorrow's opponent. The Sabres will play the Lightning tomorrow at home, and that is a team that has had tons of success over the Sabres for years and years and years, and they're having a great year. Tampa is 3 points back of the Toronto Maple Leafs for first place in the Atlantic Division, and that's a team that I have thought for years, all right, they're going to start to show their age. They're going to start to take a step back. And that happened a little bit last year. Hasn't happened as much this year. And instead, the team that has taken that big step back has been Boston. You can't get lucky and get both of them, I guess, at the same time. But Tampa's day, I still think, will come. But they're showing this year that it's years away. So the Lightning got me thinking about the division today. And we haven't spent much time on the division just because the Sabres haven't been competitive. They haven't been in races this year. They haven't been pushing for the playoffs. These games against Montreal and Ottawa and Boston, they haven't really meant anything because they've been sitting at the bottom of the standings since mid-December. Well, let's look, though, at what's happened in the division this year and what it could mean for breaking the playoff drought next year or the year after. Because the division had a fine line in the sand for many years. There was a top four and there was a bottom four, and you never had any crossover. It was always top four teams in this division were Tampa, Toronto, Florida, and Boston. In some order. That was going to be your four, and those were going to be the four teams that made the playoffs every single year. Ottawa's got this long drought, and the Sabres have, of course, their drought, and Detroit's got this long drought, and Montreal doesn't have a drought, but the last time they made the playoffs, there was no Atlantic Division. You had the COVID season where there was an all-Canadian division. So Montreal has been at the bottom for a long time. And sure, those teams at the bottom, they have done themselves a disservice by not getting it together themselves and pushing these teams to the top. Remember, there was a time 5 years ago where Florida, it was more of a top 3 and a bottom 5, that the Panthers were closer to where the Detroits and Ottawas and the Buffaloes have been living. And what did they do? They finally got rolling. Huberdeau had these career years, and then they make the Kachuk trade after that. And it's like, okay, they're not coming back to the pack. They are one of the big boys. And Ottawa hasn't been able to do that. Montreal, Buffalo, Detroit, none of these teams have been able to accomplish that. And at the same time, nobody from the top had fallen. Well, this year, finally, it hasn't included the Sabres, but this year we have some crossover in the Atlantic Division. And it starts with the Bruins. The Bruins falling off the map. They have lost 10 in a row now. Actually, it might even be 11 in a row. They've lost 7 in a row in regulation. They have been, last night, I saw a Casey Middlestat turnover that went right to a Montreal stick and went right into the back of the net, and they're losing their mind. They're like going after Slavkovsky for doing nothing, and he doesn't even care about the Bruins. Bruins don't even register right now to their opponent because they're such a joke. They're going to finish last in the Eastern Conference. Unless the Sabres have a losing streak here or Philly, the Bruins are going to finish last in the East. And look at their roster. I don't think it's getting any better for them next season. So I am going to the Sabres have not done a lot to earn this. It's more for me about Boston in this regard. I am going to go into next year. Before, we haven't seen the offseason yet, but I'm going to go into next year believing the Sabres are going to be a better team than the Boston Bruins are. And again, that's more about the Bruins and what they've become. Now, what about the teams, though, above that? Because, okay, we might have Boston here at the bottom. Well, the tough thing to figure out is how real are the seasons that Ottawa and Montreal are having. Detroit's kind of the same that they've always been. You know, they're 6 points out. They're not really dead. They're kind of in the race still. They're the drought Bills right now. The Red Wings are. They're the 7-9 team that's in the hunt graphic all the time. They're really no different than they've been in recent years. But Ottawa and Montreal are presently sitting in playoff spots. And have they taken real steps forward that are repeatable next year and beyond that will make it more challenging for the Sabres to get into the top 4 of the division? Or do we have a couple of lucky seasons from the 2 teams in this division, 2 of the teams up north? And to me, I think they are different stories. I think Montreal's got some nice things to build on. And the number one is Lane Hudson. Lane Hudson, who I think should win Rookie of the Year, has come in and been a top pair defenseman immediately. He's been awesome to watch. Smaller defenseman, tons of skill. I've loved watching his game all year long. I've liked Nick Suzuki all year long. Montembeault in goal has stabilized that net for the first time since Carey Price has been the goaltender. But that team is still just a little thin for me on star power and talent at the top of their roster for me to believe that they are just a perennial playoff team year in and year out. I think they're a little less of, okay, this is what they are now, which is a playoff team, even though they're the final team in right now. It's not like they've been dominant, but this is a playoff team next year too, and the year after, that they've got it figured out. I think they're fine. I think they're an okay hockey team that they're going to have some years like this. And they've got a couple of guys at the top like Cole Caulfield, Nick Suzuki, and Lane Hudson now to build off of that I think are pretty nice. The one thing that could get me to, okay, this is going to start happening more and more for Montreal is, what is Juraj Slavkovsky going to become? Because this year he's been pretty good. If he becomes a great top 6 winger, then that changes the equation a little bit for me. But it hasn't happened yet. He's been just pretty good. So, and he's a top pick, so he's might got that potential. We'll see. I think that's a team, though, that is gettable. You can finish above them next year if you're Buffalo. I think you can expect to finish above them if you do what you should do in the offseason. And then Ottawa, I think, is different. I think Ottawa's got it figured out. I think Ottawa has dudes at the top of their lineup, and more importantly, I think Ullmark over Montembeault for this. A goaltender that I trust year in and year out is going to be reliable and is going to be a legitimate number one goalie. Ullmark has really been that his entire career. Almost his entire career. He's been a reliable number one goalie. The only times in Buffalo when he wasn't that is when he dealt with injuries, not because of his play. His play was always kind of there. So Ottawa with Stützle and Batherson and Brady Tkachuk if he's going to stay there. I love Jake Sanderson personally as their number one defenseman, and he's still only 22 years old, so he's got a lot of growth maybe left to go. Could be a Norris Trophy winning defenseman in the future. I'm not so eager to think Cousins is going to figure it out to this extent. He's fine, and then Giroux is getting to an age where they might have to replace him. But Ottawa's got the core group to me of Stützle, Batherson, Sanderson, and Brady Tkachuk that I think is gonna, and Ullmark, of course. That five right there is gonna have them in the race at least, more so I think in a spot going forward. So that's a team like I would definitely pick to be above the Sabres next year. That's one. And then I don't think you could say anything about the top three that can see them drop. I'm not going to do it to Tampa again. Like I still have this wonder about the Lightning and when they'll hit their cliff and if they will hit their cliff before they kind of reset things. And there's no sign of that coming. So I'm not going to say it about Tampa. I'm definitely not going to say it about Florida. And then there's Toronto. Toronto is, by the way, number one in the division right now. They have an interesting offseason upcoming because Mitch Marner is going to be a UFA. And, there's some Carolina smoke about Marner. And there was some stuff about Marner at the deadline. And maybe there were some conversations that were had. He's not signed. And until he's signed, I'm just going to be thinking about Toronto a little bit. And it's not just him. John Tavares is a free agent too. I'm pretty sure, I would guess, he's going to return to Toronto on a smaller contract. He'll do some deal with them to fit. He's from there. He was a Leaf fan growing up, that he'll want to stay there till the end of his career. I guess he'd go back to Long Island and maybe try to do the LeBron thing where I left. I felt bad about it. I want to go back and kind of make things right. But I would believe Tavares is going to stay. It's more about Marner. Marner, their leading scorer on the year. He's having a phenomenal season. And it's contract year for him. He's an elite player. He might not be an elite player when he gets to the playoffs. He's more just a pretty good, very good player when he gets to the postseason. But if they lose Marner, then we'll see what they are. I don't think they'll be bad. I still think they're a playoff team without him. But are they a top of the division team without him? Remember, they've been piecing it together goalie-wise. Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Wall have held that down. But that is some goaltending that could fluctuate year to year. So the Leafs could come back to the pack a little bit. But when I look at the totality of the Atlantic, I don't see a very optimistic picture when you're looking at it from the Sabres perspective. I see one team that I would feel like if the Sabres go out this offseason and they get what they need, they get, what do they need, by the way? I like to see them add another goaltender. Maybe you get one more defenseman, you make another hockey trade that kind of shakes up the core a little bit more. And maybe you get one rookie to show up next year and produce. Maybe that's Ostlund or somebody else. And you ride into next year. I think you could certainly top Montreal, but I'd have a really hard time thinking you can jump over anybody else. And I'm including Ottawa in that. I think the Sabres will have a tough time jumping the Senators in 25-26. So this is a tough division. And I don't see it getting much easier. Boston has dropped out. At least that gives you a little bit to chew on here. But it's still a very tough division, I think, going forward. If it's something you haven't been thinking about a lot because Sabres haven't been in this spot, talking about these other teams, comparing them this year, that's how I see the Atlantic going forward at this point in time. When we come back, Noah Ostlund recalled by the Sabres, what it could mean, some of the more numbers I want to add in on him recently, and where I'd like to see him play, as Lindy Ruff will try to figure that out himself. That's coming up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres is presented by 5 Hour Energy. I've got a 12 hour drive coming up on Sunday. 5 hour energy could be pretty useful to me this weekend. The daylight savings, of course, has happened too, and 5 hour energy has your back. The extra sunshine means more time for fun, but sometimes you need that little boost to power through. So whether you're staying up late watching the final games of the NCAA tournament, or you're squeezing around a golfing, or you're just trying to keep up with the busy day, 5 hour energy gives you that quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Whether I'm at a game or I'm traveling, like I mentioned this weekend, 5 hour energy is easy to grab, keeps me feeling refreshed. It's everywhere. If you're stopping at a gas station on a long drive, of course, they're going to be all over the place. Head to 5hourenergy.com. You can find over 15 flavors to choose from: watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right to your door. Need one now? Grab a 5 hour energy shot at your local grocery or convenience store. They are everywhere. Stock up today and stay energized. Again, you can build your own 12-pack or 24-pack. Head over to 5hourenergy.com. Reminder here on the Locked On Sabres podcast that the JP Morgan Corporate Challenge happening this summer. This year's event, Thursday, June 12th, features a 3.5-mile course through Delaware Park. So Buffalo businesses, it's time to register. After the 3.5-mile course, you'll get a DJ, lawn games, a tented experience for you and your teammates. Walkers, joggers, and runners are all welcome. Whether you run for the love of it, for your company, or to build lasting bonds, this is your moment. Teams of 4 participants or more can register today. Registration closes on Tuesday, May 13th. 1 part run, 1 part party. The Corporate Challenge has earned its reputation as Buffalo's corporate social event of the year. Join us for great competition, teamwork, company pride, and a true sense of accomplishment. Go to jpmorganchasecc.com, choose Buffalo as your location, and start your registration today. See you on the course of the JP Morgan Corporate Challenge. Back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, we are 1 day away from Sabres and Lightning. Talked about the Atlantic a little bit. Well, the lineup, though, for this game against Tampa, there could really be something to watch for. We've done this exercise 13 out of the 14 years of this drought. Maybe it's not that many. Maybe it's more like, because really, if you do think back to the first couple years of the drought, the Sabres are in the race down the stretch, right? Just that year or two after that they last made it. Vanek and Pominville, like those guys were still pushing right to the very end. So maybe it's more like 10 of the 14 years we've done this song and dance where they are completely out of it in the late stages of March and into early April. And what do we talk about and what do we care about every year around this time? It's not the results of the game. It's not even always the bottom of the draft standings, right? That's not really the case this year. We're not tracking that day by day. It's, for me, more about who's getting called up and who are we going to get our first look at in the NHL. And sometimes that's a guy that's been called up from Rochester. Other times it's a guy that's wrapped up their college season and come up. I mean, that happened 2 years ago with Devin Levi when they were in a race. That Levi playing was like an added cherry on top to the race of getting to watch this new goalie that might be their number one of the future. And Owen Power showed up that 1 year after his college season ended. Casey Middlestat did that. And then you've had Rochester guys. I remember when Alex Nylander got his first call up. I was never excited about him, but some might have been. And this year, we have another. We talked about Noah Ostlund yesterday, who had been lighting it up down in Rochester. 8 goals in his last 6 games, 18 goals in his last 28 games, which, by the way, over an 82-game season, I know the AHL doesn't play an 82-game season, but over an 82-game season, 18 goals in 28 games is a 52-goal pace. Ostlund's been on a 52-goal pace for the last 2.5 months down in Rochester. Named AHL Player of the Week, Player of the Week in the whole AHL, and then AHL Rookie of the Month for the month of March. First round pick, 16th overall in 2022, part of the Jack Eichel trade return. This guy's been lighting it up down in the AHL. He gets his first call up to Buffalo, and it looks like he's going to play. It looks like he's going to play tomorrow. And I'll do a check for you right now again to see who he might be playing with. I'll tell you who I want to see him play with, though. But him getting some action, getting some ice time, That's the number one thing to watch tomorrow. And if he does play tomorrow, which all indications look like that he will play tomorrow, but we'll see. And then the rest of the season, if he gets minutes, that's the guy I want to see. I know what I'm getting out of a lot of these other players, but the curiosity of the new kid and whether he might be close to NHL ready, that's what you want down the stretch here when the games and the results are mostly meaningless. So what we know about Ostlund at this point in time, skilled player, smaller, right? Especially now, he hasn't put a lot of weight on, 170 pounds. He is skating on the second power play unit. Lindy's got him in front of the net. McLeod, Cooley, Quinn, and Power fill out the rest of that unit. And this is maybe not a great sign for his playing tomorrow, but he is practicing on the fourth line. He's practicing with Beck Malenstein and Sam Lafferty. Looks like Ostlund's been playing down the middle, center. He is a center. He could play wing, though, too. At least, you've seen that in AHL. You've seen that in juniors, World Juniors. So Lafferty and Malenstein. Not what I was hoping for. I was hoping to see him play with Tuck or play with McLeod even. Just somebody in a top 9 role. And not just kind of let him play 8 minutes on a fourth line where he's going to get stuck in his own end the whole night. And where do Malenstein and Lafferty want to play? They want to play along the boards. And Ostlund, you want him playing, I think, with a little bit more open ice. And to me, that doesn't really suit his skill to play on that line. So I don't love that. I would have rather, if I were building out the lines right now, I honestly would bump Benson down for right now. Maybe put Benson down with like Krebs and Tuck. And I would have Kulik with Thompson and Ostlund. I would do that for his first taste of the NHL. Now, what that could mean, though, is that he might not play. Because Jordan Greenway, Josh Norris, they're still absent with injuries. I want to get to them coming back here. Tyson Kozak was also absent. And this could be a case of, I guess it could be a case of Ostlund is just up here to practice because they needed another body. But why wouldn't you do that then with Brett Murray or with, one of the guys that's already been up here? Josh Dunn's been back and forth, right? Roseanne has been back and forth. Maybe they just don't want to keep having him drive back and forth. I don't know. I saw a story from Kevin Aklubja the other day in Rochester that Roseanne was not sleeping ahead of some of these games because he was traveling a lot. So maybe that's it. But I think if you call Ostlund up, it's because you want him to play. And playing him on the fourth line is just a little strange. So that looks like what it could be right now. Tomorrow in Tampa, if he does play, he'll be wearing number 36. He's wearing number 36 right now. He did wear that in the preseason. He's been wearing 86 down in Rochester. Don't know what 30. I don't know if 36 could be his permanent number, if that's just some of these guys will wear whatever number at the end of a year and then they switch after that. So I guess jury's out on the number. But for right now, it's 36. When we come back, what his call-up means for injured guys and who we might not see again over the course of the rest of the year. Got a takeaway on that when we come back here on the Locked On Sabres podcast. Today's episode of Locked On Sabres presented by FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're looking at the odds for tomorrow against Tampa, no surprise the Sabres are an underdog to the Lightning. But if you're feeling good about the Sabres, they've been very good at home as of late, then check out the odds over on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. FanDuel is giving you the chance to get on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. 200 extra bucks to use on everything from these hockey games down the stretch on OV, maybe breaking the record. You've got the giant golf tournament coming next week at Augusta. Can't wait for that. So the FanDuel app, super simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. You have the live betting odds that are always up there for you as the game's progressing if you want to get in after the game starts too. And with the tournament games wrapping up too, you've got those always something exciting to bet on. So visit FanDuel.com, get in on all the college hoops action as the tournament winds down. Again, at FanDuel.com for FanDuel Sportsbook. Wrapping things up here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, the Sabres and the Lightning tomorrow. And the Sabres will have a 3-game homestand here. I am going to be back in town, driving back on Sunday. I am going to try to go to the game against Carolina on Tuesday. There's only a couple more opportunities to go to the arena. Carolina for me, and then Toronto on Tuesday, April 15th, just to see what the atmosphere looks like. And then we'll see what we get for the finale against Philly. So we got 5 home games remaining on the calendar. And then that Amherst game next Friday. Remember, that'll be a good trip. Just drive 90 minutes to Friday night, Hall of Fame night for the Amherst. And that's a huge game for them against Laval, who is currently sitting top their division. So what Ostlund being called up could mean for the remainder of the year. I think the natural takeaway that I'm not first to, I saw other people have this same takeaway on Twitter, that his recall could mean the end for Josh Norris, especially, and maybe Jordan Greenway, injury-wise, for the year. Greenway, he's had a nice year, and nobody's been upset with his play, which is kind of amazing because it hasn't been perfect. But, I mean, I'll tell you, I was not a Greenway guy. I did not like him last year or the year prior at all with this hockey team. And I was ready to see him be a healthy scratch at the beginning of the year. He's only played 34 games, and he's only scored 3 goals on the year. I mean, 3 goals for a guy that they just gave a decent contract to. And it doesn't really register because we have liked his game. And I have liked him defensively, especially. Penalty kill, he's been great. Physically, he's there, and the Sabres don't have enough of that in the first place. Next year, the goals for Greenway are going to be stay healthy, and you got to give me more than 3 goals. Like, I know he's not a goal scorer. Give me the double digits. Give me 10, 11, 12 for the amount of money that you're getting paid. And he is playing 15 to 17 minutes of ice time a night in his Sabre career. So give me a little bit more production offensively. But injuries and health is one of them. So shutting him down for the year, the Sabres might be taking an attitude of, he hasn't been able to stay healthy all year. We just signed him. Let's make sure he's good going into the offseason and there's no setback or something that we have to worry about for the beginning of next season. So we'll see. Greenway, an option to be shut down for the year. And then Norris, of course, the same thing. And same mentality of the concern right now with Norris is not about his game. It's about health. And why, if he's dealing with something, even if it's a little nagging thing, why play Josh Norris in these games at the end when you could give Noah Ostlund the minutes and see what he's got? Or call somebody up down in Rochester that's earned a call up and see what he's got. I personally don't see the need to play Norris again this year. So to me, it's the same thing with him. You just shut him down for the year, focus on the offseason, getting stronger, getting healthier, and we'll make sure you're 100% going into next year. The last thing you would want to have happen is to bring one of these guys back that have been dealing with injuries, maybe if they're not 100%, and then they get some major injury that has us wondering about their availability for the beginning of next year, training camp. I don't see the need to risk any of that with these two individuals especially. So Ostlund being called up and in theory being a player that could play more minutes, top of the lineup because of what he's done in Rochester, if he earns that, no need for Norris, no need for Greenway to play again. Just bring guys from Rochester up. And the other thing too is Rochester, listen, they might have a shot here at the division still, but if they don't win the division and they're 5 points back, they don't really have much to play for down the stretch here. You want all their guys good for the playoffs, but if the Amherst were in a playoff race, then to me it'd be a little bit different. It would be, you want them to have all their available players down there to have a shot at it. But they're not. They don't have meaningful games down the stretch here unless the division comes into play. And at the moment, that seems like a little bit of a long shot. So there really is no argument in my opinion that these two should be playing the rest of the season, almost under any circumstance. Norris and Greenway for that. All right, that's going to do it for us today here on Locked On Sabres. Enjoy Sabres and the Lightning tomorrow for all your league-wide NHL topics. The playoff races are heating up. Been looking at some of the first-round matchups. If the season ended today, they're covering all that over on Locked On NHL. Be sure to check them out. Available wherever you get your podcast, YouTube as well, for Locked On NHL. We'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks for listening throughout the week. Have a good weekend. Talk to you on Monday here on the Locked On Sabres podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.